I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my mind. The moment at our anniversary dinner when my wife, with a tremor in her voice and tears glistening in her eyes, confessed to cheating. In those first 100 heartbeats, every cherished dream and silent promise we had built over years of shared laughter and quiet support shattered into 1,000 shards of betrayal. The restaurant's soft lighting and the clink of glasses faded into oblivion as her confession pierced the air like a jagged bolt of lightning. I felt a surge of raw pain and icy resolve, and in that moment I knew my life was about to change forever. That evening had started like any other special celebration. Our anniversary dinner was set in a classy, dimly lit restaurant, chosen to mark another year of what I had believed was a loving, if sometimes challenging, partnership. We sat across from each other at a candlelit table, the atmosphere filled with the gentle hum of conversation and the murmur of clinking silverware. I had looked forward to this night for months, a chance to reminisce about our shared history, to laugh over old stories, and to dream aloud about the future we had meticulously planned together. I had no inkling that what was meant to be a celebration of our enduring love would become the stage for a confession that would rip apart the foundation of our marriage. As the courses of our dinner arrived one after another, fresh salad, succulent entree, and a decadent dessert, the conversation flowed, albeit with an undercurrent of tension I couldn't quite place. My wife had been unusually quiet at times, her gaze occasionally drifting to the window as if searching for something beyond the warm glow of the restaurant. I chalked it up to nerves or perhaps the weight of the years that had passed. Yet, as the dessert was served, she took a deep breath and with a shaky voice began to speak. Her confession was almost inaudible at first, a tremor in her words that grew steadily until it was impossible to ignore. She admitted, with a sorrowful look that broke my heart, that she had been unfaithful, an admission that, in that charged moment, felt like a dagger to everything I had ever believed in. I sat frozen, the taste of betrayal bitter on my tongue, as the reality of her words sank in. My mind raced through countless memories, the late nights, the subtle hints, the distant glances that I had brushed aside as harmless. Now, every little detail converged into one devastating truth. The warm ambience of the restaurant turned cold, and the supportive murmur of our friends and family at nearby tables seemed to fade away, leaving only the echo of her confession and the pounding of my heart. I felt as though the ground had shifted beneath me, leaving me unsteady and exposed, stripped of all the illusions that had once cushioned my belief in our love. In that unbearable silence, while my heart was pounding in shock and pain, I made a decision that would set the course for the rest of my life. I couldn't let that confession, as heartbreaking as it was, mark the end of my story. I knew I had to reclaim my dignity, my self-worth, and above all, my future. I needed to send a message that, though I had loved deeply and sacrificed much, I was not someone to be disregarded or dismissed so easily. And so, without a word spoken in the midst of that charged moment, I subtly signaled to our waiter, a man who had served us with quiet professionalism throughout the night, that it was time to act. That night, as our dinner wound down and my wife's eyes filled with a mixture of regret and resignation, I quietly slipped a sealed envelope across the table to the waiter. In that envelope lay the divorce papers I had painstakingly prepared in secret over the past weeks, a document that would, when served, irrevocably sever the ties that had once bound us together. I had spent countless hours consulting with a lawyer, ensuring that every detail was ironclad, that my future would be secure once this painful chapter ended. The envelope was a symbol of my silent rebellion, a testament to the fact that I had chosen to stand up for myself rather than wallow in the heartbreak of betrayal. The waiter, whose eyes met mine in a brief moment of understanding, nodded subtly before disappearing into the dim corridors of the restaurant. I sat there, my mind swirling with a tumult of emotions, bitterness for the betrayal, sorrow for the loss of what had been, and a resolute calm that came from finally taking control of my destiny. In that instant, the memory of our shared dreams, the countless sacrifices I had made, and the love I had once believed in, all gave way to a powerful new truth. I was done. I was no longer willing to live in the shadow of deceit or to let my worth be defined by someone who had so carelessly shattered our future. The rest of the evening unfolded in a surreal blur. My wife, unaware of my silent coup, continued to converse with her colleagues as if nothing had changed. The ambient chatter and laughter of the restaurant swirled around me, but I was lost in a world of my own making, a world where the seeds of my new beginning were already being sown. As I watched her from across the table, I felt a strange sense of liberation mingled with the pain. I had always believed that love required sacrifice, that sometimes you had to endure hardship for the sake of a shared future. But now I understood that true love, and true self-respect, demanded that you honor your own worth above all else. I left the restaurant that night with a heavy heart yet a clear mind. The cool night air enveloped me as I walked to my car, each step echoing the resolve I had found within myself. I knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, the legal battles, the emotional fallout, and the inevitable confrontation with the remnants of a life that had once been intertwined with hers. But I also knew that I had taken the first courageous step toward reclaiming my future. I had turned the tables in a way that was both unexpected and irrevocable. I had chosen to let the truth of my worth shine through, even as the remnants of betrayal lay scattered in the wake of our shared past. As I drove away, the city lights blurred into a mosaic of colors and possibilities. I felt a profound sense of both loss and liberation, a bittersweet acknowledgement that while one chapter of my life had ended, another was just beginning. The decision to serve her divorce papers through the discreet assistance of a waiter was not an act of petty revenge. It was a declaration of independence, a final severance of ties that had long stifled my true potential. I had taken the power to redefine my future out of my own hands, and in doing so, I had already begun to rebuild the life I deserved. In that solitary drive home, I reflected on the years of quiet suffering, the sacrifices made in the name of love, and the time I had spent wondering if I was ever truly enough. Now those questions were answered with a resounding clarity. I was enough, and my future would be defined not by the failures of our past, but by the strength I had discovered within myself. The road ahead was uncertain, and the scars of betrayal would always remain, but they were no longer a chain that bound me. They were a testament to my resilience, a silent reminder of the power of choosing yourself even in the face of overwhelming heartbreak. As I parked my car outside my modest apartment and stepped into the quiet darkness of my new solitude, I felt a small, resolute smile form on my lips. I had chosen to reclaim my identity, to build a future that was entirely my own, and to never again allow someone else's betrayal to dictate my worth. And though the journey ahead promised to be long and winding, I was ready to embrace every challenge with the unshakable belief that I was and always would be enough. In the days and weeks following that fateful night, I embarked on a journey that reshaped not only my financial future but the very core of my identity. The shock of discovering that our house savings had been squandered on a lavish trip with her affair partner had left me reeling, and yet, it also lit a fire of determination within me. I spent those early days wandering the now quiet halls of our former home, each room echoing with memories of dreams we once nurtured together. The silence was oppressive, yet it forced me to confront the painful truth. I had been betrayed, and the life we had built together was now in ruins. But even in that crushing darkness, I found a spark of resolve. I knew I could not remain a passive victim. I had to take control and rewrite my destiny. The first step was to face the reality head-on. I meticulously reviewed every bank statement, every transaction, and every legal document that confirmed the staggering fact that our shared savings were gone. The numbers were undeniable, a series of withdrawals that left our account barren. I felt a bitter mix of grief and anger surge through me, but I also recalled the secret precaution I had taken long before. I had cashed out my share of our retirement funds. That foresight, which at the time had been an unspoken acknowledgement of uncertainty, now became my lifeline. It meant that while she had risked everything on a moment of infidelity and selfish desire, I was not left destitute. I had my own savings, my own security, and I was determined to use it to forge a future that was unequivocally mine. In the solitude of my study, with the harsh fluorescent light casting long shadows on the wall, I began to plan my next steps. I grabbed a fresh notebook and, in long, deliberate lines, started mapping out my goals. I wrote about my need to reclaim my independence and my determination to build a new home, one that would stand as a testament to my resilience. I drafted a detailed plan outlining how I would invest my savings wisely, how I would secure a modest property in a neighborhood that felt welcoming and real, and how I would rebuild the life I once thought we were creating together. Every word on those pages was laced with both sorrow and a defiant hope that my future would be shaped by my own hands. During this period of intense planning, I sought the counsel of financial advisors and legal experts. I scheduled meetings with professionals who had built their reputations on helping people recover from financial betrayals. Over several sessions, I pored over the details of my accounts and reallocated my funds into safer investments. They taught me about diversification, about the importance of having a personal safety net, and about strategies for rebuilding wealth after a significant loss. With each piece of advice, my sense of security grew. I felt a quiet confidence that I was not just surviving, I was laying the groundwork for a prosperous, independent future. At the same time, I could not ignore the deep emotional wounds that the betrayal had inflicted. For nights on end, I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment I discovered our savings were gone. I felt a searing loneliness, a profound sense of isolation that seemed to swallow the light around me. In those dark hours, I turned to therapy, seeking help to navigate the turbulent sea of emotions. My therapist encouraged me to face the pain head-on, to acknowledge every shred of hurt, anger, and confusion without letting it define me. We delved into the intricacies of trust and betrayal, of how shared dreams can sometimes mask individual aspirations. In those sessions, I learned that forgiveness was not about absolving her of her actions. It was about freeing myself from the chains of bitterness that threatened to hold me back. Slowly, I began to see that while the wound was deep, it was also the beginning of a transformation, a painful yet necessary crucible through which I would rediscover who I truly was. I also reached out to old friends, people who had known me before the weight of our shared life had grown too heavy. In quiet cafes and over long, heartfelt conversations, I recounted the events of that night, expressing my shock and sorrow as well as my emerging resolve. Their responses were a mixture of empathy and admiration. "You always had a strength in you that I never really saw," one friend confided, her eyes soft with understanding. "I'm sorry you had to go through this, but maybe it's time you put yourself first." Such words resonated deeply, slowly dissolving the sting of betrayal and replacing it with the realization that I had the power to redefine my identity. Those conversations became anchors that steadied me, reinforcing that my worth was intrinsic and that I deserved a life built on authenticity and self-respect. As the days turned into weeks, I began to implement practical steps to rebuild my future. I started attending property viewings in neighborhoods I had never considered before. I wandered through modest subdivisions, imagining a place where the walls would bear witness to my new beginning, a home that would be entirely mine, untouched by the shadows of our past. Every house I visited was a silent promise that life could still offer beauty, stability, and hope, even after devastating betrayal. I took notes, compared prices, and gradually, a clear picture of my ideal future began to form. I envisioned a small but comfortable home, a place with a bright kitchen, a sunlit living room, and a cozy study where I could continue my journey of self-discovery. I consulted with real estate agents, negotiated terms, and eventually, I found a property that resonated with my vision of a fresh start. Each step in this process was a testament to my reclaiming my independence, a tangible reminder that I was building a future defined by my own choices. Parallel to these practical steps, my professional life began to flourish in unexpected ways. Fueled by the need to prove my worth, not to anyone else but to myself, I threw myself into my work with renewed vigor. I accepted challenging projects, took on leadership roles, and even initiated innovative ideas that had long been dormant in the back of my mind. Late nights in the office, once filled with quiet resignation, transformed into sessions of creative energy and relentless determination. I restructured my business operations, refined my marketing strategies, and reached out to new clients with a confidence that gradually earned me the respect of colleagues and competitors alike. Every contract secured, every positive review, and every new opportunity felt like a personal victory, a quiet, unspoken message that I was not defined by my past, but by the strength I had built for my future. As I balanced these new professional achievements with the personal journey of healing, I began to explore creative outlets that allowed me to express the complex tapestry of my emotions. I returned to painting, an art form that had always been a source of solace in my youth. In the solitude of a sunlit studio, I poured my heart onto canvases with bold, expressive strokes, each painting a visual narrative of betrayal, loss, and ultimately rebirth. I started a private blog where I wrote candidly about my experiences, sharing every raw detail of my journey, from the shock of discovering our stolen savings to the slow, deliberate process of rebuilding my life. The act of writing became a cathartic release, a way to transform the pain into something that could inspire others. The feedback I received was unexpectedly uplifting. Strangers reached out, sharing their own stories of heartbreak and recovery, and in those exchanges I found a deep sense of connection and purpose. Throughout this transformative phase, I maintained a rigorous routine that balanced practical tasks with deep introspection. My mornings were dedicated to physical renewal, long runs that cleared my mind, meditation sessions that centered my thoughts, and quiet moments of gratitude as I watched the sunrise. Afternoons were consumed by work, strategic planning, and meetings that pushed me to innovate and excel. Evenings became a time for reflection, long hours spent journaling my thoughts, reading books on resilience and personal growth, and engaging in heartfelt conversations with friends who had become my pillars of support. This disciplined routine, though demanding, slowly stitched together the frayed edges of my life, creating a new, unbreakable tapestry of purpose and self-belief. As the weeks turned into months, I began to see the tangible fruits of my labor. My newly restructured business started to gain momentum, and my efforts to secure financial independence began to pay off. I received encouraging messages from clients, secured small contracts that bolstered my portfolio, and even began to attract attention from industry peers who admired my innovative approach and unwavering determination. Every financial report that showed steady growth was a vindication of the careful decisions I had made, proof that, despite the betrayal, my future was not only intact but bright with possibility. Yet, amidst these professional triumphs, the emotional journey remained equally significant. I continued to delve deep into the lessons of forgiveness, not for her sake but for my own liberation. I learned that holding on to anger would only keep me tethered to a painful past, and that the only way to truly move forward was to let go. I practiced mindfulness and embraced the power of vulnerability, understanding that true strength lay in acknowledging the pain while refusing to be defined by it. Slowly, the raw edges of my grief softened, replaced by a quiet, enduring hope that I could create a new life from the remnants of what was lost. I also reconnected with the essence of who I was before the betrayal. I revisited old hobbies, re-established connections with friends, and allowed myself to laugh and feel again. I attended small gatherings where I shared my journey openly, and in those moments, I discovered that vulnerability was not a weakness but a profound source of strength. The community of people who had faced similar betrayals and come out stronger provided a supportive backdrop against which I began to see my own resilience more clearly. Their stories, intertwined with my own, wove a rich tapestry of human endurance that filled me with the courage to keep moving forward. Every conversation, every shared moment of empathy, reinforced the idea that the journey of healing was not one of isolation but of connection, of finding that no matter how deep the wound, the human spirit has an extraordinary capacity to mend, to grow, and to transform. I began to mentor a few individuals who had reached out to me, sharing the lessons I had learned in the hope that my experiences might serve as a beacon for others struggling to reclaim their identity after betrayal. Each mentorship session, every heartfelt discussion, was both a tribute to my own journey and a quiet act of rebellion against the notion that I had been defined by someone else's failure to appreciate me. In the midst of all this, I took bold steps to secure my new future. I finalized the purchase of a modest home, a place that would be my own sanctuary, untouched by the memories of a shattered shared dream. I spent days carefully choosing every detail of the new space, from the color of the walls to the layout of each room, ensuring that it reflected my personal tastes and the journey I had undergone. The new home was not just a structure, it was a symbol of my independence, a tangible reminder that I had reclaimed control over my destiny. Every time I walked through its halls, I felt a surge of pride, a silent celebration of the life I was now building from scratch, a life defined solely by my own choices and values. By now, my daily routine had become a blend of rigorous discipline and quiet celebration. Mornings brought with them the clarity of a new day, filled with the promise of progress, while evenings offered moments of introspection and gratitude. I would sit by the window watching the sunset, and reflect on how far I had come, from the crushing betrayal of that empty house to the slow, determined march toward a future that was unequivocally mine. In those reflective moments, I felt a profound sense of closure, a realization that while the scars of the past would always remain, they no longer held me captive. Instead, they served as markers of my resilience, reminders that even the deepest wounds could give rise to new beginnings. As the months of transformation turned into nearly a year, the cumulative effect of all my efforts began to shine through in every aspect of my life. My professional successes multiplied, my finances stabilized and grew, and my personal relationships deepened into bonds built on genuine understanding and mutual support. I started to see my journey not as a series of isolated painful events, but as a continuous process of evolution, a narrative in which every setback was a stepping stone, every moment of despair a precursor to hope. The person I had become was far removed from the man who once endured silent humiliation at that anniversary dinner. I had emerged stronger, more self-assured, and more determined than ever to shape my own future. Each day as I continued along this path, I documented every milestone, every small victory in my journal. I wrote about the professional breakthroughs, the gradual healing of my heart, and the new dreams that blossomed as I reclaimed my independence. Those pages, filled with raw emotion and unyielding determination, became a testament to my journey, a record of how betrayal had, paradoxically, paved the way for my ultimate rebirth. I realized that the pain I had endured was not a curse, but a catalyst, a painful yet necessary impetus that forced me to break free from a life that no longer served me and to build something entirely new. I also began to reflect on the transformation in a more philosophical light. I started reading books on resilience, on the nature of human suffering, and on the art of reinvention. I found solace in the writings of people who had faced unimaginable hardships and yet had emerged with a renewed sense of purpose. Their words resonated with me, reinforcing the idea that every end is merely a new beginning. I learned that true empowerment comes not from clinging to the past, but from embracing the uncertainties of the future with a heart that is open and unafraid. Every piece of wisdom I encountered became a stepping stone, guiding me further along the path of self-discovery. As spring blossomed around me, so did my vision for the future. I began to set new, ambitious goals that were entirely my own. I envisioned expanding my business, exploring creative ventures that had long been dormant, and investing in experiences that would enrich my life in ways I had never dared to dream. Every new project, every calculated risk, was a bold declaration that my destiny was mine to shape. I felt an electric thrill each time I envisioned a future that was bright with promise. A future where I was in control, where my choices, my efforts, and my dreams defined my reality. I reached out to a network of professionals who had also reinvented themselves after heartbreak. In these exchanges, I found a camaraderie that further fueled my determination. We traded stories of loss and triumph, shared strategies for rebuilding from scratch, and encouraged one another to push past the pain. The collective strength of these individuals, who had all faced their own demons and emerged victorious, was a potent reminder that I was not alone, that my struggle was part of a much larger narrative of human resilience. Their support and shared insights gave me the courage to take even bolder steps in my personal and professional life. One evening, as I sat in a quiet lounge listening to soft jazz and reflecting on the transformative months behind me, I realized that the journey of rebuilding my life was not just about financial security or professional success. It was about reclaiming my very essence. I had learned to value myself in ways I had never thought possible, to see my worth not as a reflection of external validation, but as an intrinsic part of who I was. I had transformed pain into power, betrayal into a stepping stone, and every tear shed had nourished the roots of my newfound strength. By now, the person I had become was unrecognizable from the man I once was, a man defined by quiet despair and a shattered future. I was now a mosaic of every hardship overcome, every lesson learned, and every small victory celebrated. I had built a solid foundation for a life that was independent, fulfilling, and rich with the promise of tomorrow. My new home, my re-established career, and my renewed sense of purpose all bore witness to the fact that I had chosen to rise above the darkness of betrayal. I had reclaimed my identity and, in doing so, I had unlocked the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. As I write these words, I stand on the precipice of a new chapter, one that is as uncertain as it is filled with promise. The scars of my past remain, but they no longer serve as chains. Instead, they are the marks of my hard-fought journey, the symbols of a spirit that refused to be broken. I look forward with hope and a quiet determination that my destiny is mine to create, one courageous step at a time. Every challenge that lies ahead is an opportunity to further define who I am and to build a future that reflects the true, resilient, and unapologetic me.